Under the blood-red skies of Verith Prime, the human fleet entered the alien system with caution. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the bridge of the lead vessel, scanning the horizon for any sign of hostility. The Zereth Empire had summoned them under strange terms, offering no explanation for the urgent call. No one on the crew trusted the invitation, but turning back was no longer an option. The ship slowed as they approached the capital world, where a palace of golden spires rose above the clouds like crown. The streets below were filled with alien citizens in shimmering robes, their eyes locked on the human delegation as they descended from their vessel. Whispers traveled like a wave through the crowd, a mix of awe and disbelief. Elias felt the weight of their stays but kept walking, his boots striking the marble path toward the grand palace gates. Beside him marched two human officers, equally tense but masking it with rigid posture. They had been told this meeting was a matter of galactic unity, yet the air smelled of something far more complicated. Inside the throne hall, the air was warm and heavy with the scent of exotic flowers. Thousands of alien courtiers lined the walls, their jeweled eyes reflecting the torchlight. At the far end, upon a high dais, sat the alienqueen herself. Her crown gleamed under the light, and her gown shimmered like woven starlight. Elias had seen images of her before, but they failed to capture the strange pull in her gaze. When she saw him, her expression shifted in an instant. To the shock of everyone in the room, she rose from her throne and descended the steps with graceful urgency. The murmurs grew louder as she approached. Her long veil brushed the marble floor, and her golden ornaments jingled softly. Then, before Elias could process what was happening, the queen dropped to her knees before him. Gasps filled the chamber, and the alien guard stiffened in confusion. Elias froze, unsure whether to speak or step back. Every instinct told him this was no act of diplomacy but something deeply personal. Her eyes met his, glowing with an emotion he could not name. "I know who you are," she said softly, her voice trembling yet firm. "And you do not know what you carry." Elias felt a chill run down his spine, but he forced himself to keep his tone steady. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else," he replied. Yet the way she looked at him told him that her certainty was unshakable. Around them, the alien court seemed torn between outrage and reverence, their confusion mirroring his own. The queen's fingers brushed the floor in a ceremonial gesture before she stood again. "This is not the place for truth," she declared to her court. "You will treat him as my honored guest." Her voice left no room for argument, and the guards lowered their weapons. Elias felt 100 eyes on him, some hostile, some curious. Whatever this was, it had just placed him in the center of a storm he didn't understand. He could feel his officers' unease behind him, but turning away was no longer possible. As they followed the queen deeper into the palace, Elias noted the strange architecture, walls that seemed alive, veins of light pulsing through the stone, as if the building itself was breathing. The deeper they went, the fewer people there were, until they entered a private chamber lit only by the glow of floating orbs. She motioned for him to sit, but Elias remained standing, his guard still high. "You must listen before the others return," she said. "If they learn the truth too soon, you will never leave this planet alive." Her words struck harder than he expected, and he realized that whatever had brought him here was no accident. She looked at him with something between fear and longing, as though seeing him was both a relief and a danger. "Then start talking," he said, his voice low but firm. The queen took a deep breath, her hands curling into fists at her side. "Very well, human," she said, stepping closer until he could see the fine gold dust across her skin. "I will tell you why I fell to my knees, and why your name is already written in the stars." The queen's chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the glowing orbs that floated above them. Elias stood still, his eyes locked on Hayes, waiting for her to speak. She seemed to be measuring him, as if testing whether he was ready for what she was about to reveal. The guards outside remained like statues, their shadows stretching under the doorway. Finally, she stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You carry the mark of the Starblood," she said, her gaze never wavering. Elias frowned, unsure if it was some alien insult or a title he should recognize. The words meant nothing to him, but the intensity in her tone told him they meant everything to her. She reached out as if to touch his face, but stopped short, her fingers trembling in the air. "It's not visible to human eyes," she continued, "but every Zereth in this room saw it the moment you arrived." Elias felt his pulse quicken. "Why would I have something like that?" he asked. She turned away for a moment, her gown rippling like water as she moved. "Because someone gave it to you long before you set foot here," she replied. The way she said it made it sound less like a gift and more like a curse. She glanced over her shoulder at him, her eyes sharp. "And if the wrong faction learns of it, you will be dead before the next sunrise." He took a slow breath, forcing his voice to stay calm. "Then I suppose you'd better tell me what it means," he said. The queen walked to a carved pedestal in the corner of the chamber, placing her hands on its surface. A ripple of light spread across the stone, revealing an image, an ancient star map etched in lines of glowing blue. "This mark binds you to the prophecy of the Forgotten War," she explained. "It names the one who will decide the fate of my people and perhaps yours." The image shifted, showing strange alien figures locked in battle among shattered worlds. Elias could feel the weight of the history in the air, like a memory that didn't belong to him. The queen pointed to a single star in the center of the map. "This is the place where it all began," she said, "and it is the place you must go." Elias shook his head, taking a step back. "You're assuming I believe any of this," he replied. Her lips curved into a faint smile, though there was no humor in it. "I don't care if you believe me human," she said softly. "I care that you survive long enough to do what must be done." Her hand closed the image, and the map dissolved into darkness. "You will leave here tonight, under my protection, before the council can act," she added. Elias narrowed his eyes. "And if I refuse?" The queen's expression hardened, and for a moment, he thought he saw fear flicker behind her calm facade. "Then you will never see another sunrise in this galaxy." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the hall outside. The queen straightened her posture, her regal mask returning in an instant. "They are coming," she said. "Do not speak of what you've heard to anyone, not even your own men." She moved to the door, her voice low enough for only him to hear. "Trust me, and I will get you off this planet alive." Elias hesitated, torn between suspicion and the strange pull of her conviction. He nodded once, knowing that whatever game this was, he was already caught in it. When the doors opened, the courtiers entered with curious eyes, their voices low and calculating. The queen addressed them with the grace of a ruler untouched by scandal, offering no hint of their private exchange. Elias stood silently at her side, his mind racing. He didn't know where this would lead, but one thing was certain. The moment she knelt before him had set events in motion that could not be undone. The air outside the queen's private chamber felt heavier than before as Elias followed her through the winding halls. Guards lined every corridor, their expressions unreadable, but their eyes flicked toward him with something between suspicion and fear. The queen's steps were slow and deliberate, each movement commanding the attention of all around her. No one dared to speak in her presence, yet Elias could feel the tension crawling through the palace walls like a living thing. They entered a vast courtyard filled with alien flora that shimmered faintly in the pale light. Tall blossoms swayed without wind, releasing a soft golden mist into the air. Elias's instincts told him this place was sacred, and the way the queen moved confirmed it. She stopped beside a pool of crystal-clear water, its surface reflecting the alien moons above. "This is the garden of first oaths," she said quietly. "No lies may be spoken here without consequence." Her gaze locked with his as if daring him to test it. Elias crossed his arms. "Then I suppose this is where you want me to agree to whatever you're planning," he said. The queen's lips curved into a faint smile, though her eyes stayed sharp. "You are not wrong," she replied, "but it is not only for my sake." She reached into the fold of a gown and withdrew a small, glowing shard of crystal. Its light pulsed gently, almost in rhythm with Elias's heartbeat. "This will bind your path to mine until the prophecy is fulfilled," she continued. He took a step back, shaking his head. "You're talking about magic or something close to it," he said, "and I don't make deals I don't understand." The queen studied him, her expression neither angry nor pleading, merely patient, as if she knew the ending long before the first move was made. "You will understand," she said. "When the time comes, you will see why the stars chose you." Her voice carried a quiet certainty that unsettled him more than any threat could have. The sound of movement drew his attention. From the shadowed edges of the courtyard, figures emerged, tall aliens clad in armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Each bore a staff tipped with a blade, and their faces were hidden behind masks etched with ancient symbols. The queen did not turn to face them, but her voice grew sharper. "These are my shadows," she said. "They will ensure you reach the starship unharmed." Elias glanced between them, noting how their every movement was perfectly in sync. As they began to walk again, Elias found himself surrounded by the silent guards, their steps barely making a sound against the stone. The queen moved ahead, her veil trailing like a ribbon of light in the moonlit courtyard. He wondered if she trusted these warriors as much as she claimed, or if they were another set of eyes to watch him closely. Every instinct told him that in this palace, trust was a rare and dangerous thing. They reached a set of gates made from blackstone, towering twice the height of a man. The queen touched her palm to the surface, and glowing veins of light spread through the stone until it split open with a low rumble. Beyond was a narrow bridge leading to a smaller docking platform where a sleek vessel waited. The ship's hull gleamed with a mix of human and alien design, its sharp angles softened by flowing lines of ornamentation. "This will take you to the outer rings," she said. Elias stepped forward, but before he could reach the vessel, the queen placed a hand on his arm. Her touch was light yet unyielding. "Remember what I said," she told him. "Speak of the mark to no one, and trust no one until I return to you." Her eyes held his for a long moment, the unspoken weight of her warning sinking deep into his mind. He gave a small nod, knowing that whatever lay ahead was only the beginning of something far larger than he could yet see. The ship's interior was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Smooth metallic walls curved seamlessly into the floor and ceiling, glowing with soft lines of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air carried a faint scent of something floral yet unfamiliar, calming but also unnerving. He ran his fingers along one wall, feeling warmth beneath the surface, as though the vessel itself were alive. The shadows took their positions without a word, their silent presence a constant reminder that he was being watched. The queen stood near the central console, her golden crown catching the ship's ambient light. Her eyes moved between controls and Elias, as if she were memorizing him as much as the course she plotted. "This vessel will take you beyond the reach of the council's spies," she said. "But danger will follow regardless." Elias stepped closer, keeping his voice low. "You're certain they'll try to stop me?" She nodded once, her expression grave. "They fear what you represent more than they fear me." As the engines hummed to life, the view beyond the cockpit shifted. The city's glowing towers fell away, replaced by the endless stretch of alien sky. The stars above were sharper here, glittering in colors Earth's skies could never match. Elias stared at them, feeling the weight of what the queen had told him pressing against his thoughts. "Tell me more about this prophecy," he said. Her gaze softened slightly. "It speaks of a human who will stand at the heart of the Starblood War, deciding its final course." He frowned. "And you think that's me?" Her lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. "I know it is," she said simply. "The mark on you is older than your world's recorded history." The certainty in her tone left no room for argument. Elias shifted his stance, unsure if a conviction was more dangerous than the threat she had warned about. "If this is true, then you're placing a great deal of trust in a stranger," he said. Her eyes gleamed. "I'm placing my trust in destiny." The shadows moved with fluid precision as the ship broke through the atmosphere. Beyond the curve of the planet lay a dark expanse lit only by distant stars and the faint glow of drifting gas clouds. One of the shadows approached the queen, bowing slightly before speaking in a language Elias could not understand. Her response was quick and sharp, and the warrior retreated without further comment. Elias raised an eyebrow. What was that about? She glanced at him. "An update. The council has already moved to intercept us." Elias felt the tension in the room rise. "How far?" he asked. The queen's hands danced across the console, bringing up a holographic display of the surrounding space. Small crimson markers blinked along the edge of the map. "Closer than I'd like," she admitted. "We'll need to use the rift lanes to get ahead of them." Elias studied the map, noting the twisting blue pathways that branched like veins through the void. "And what's the catch?" he asked. Her tone turned grim. "The rift lanes are unstable. One wrong calculation, and we vanish into the dark." The vessel angled toward one of the glowing blue lines, the stars around them beginning to warp as they drew closer. Elias gripped the edge of the console, feeling the strange pull of the ship as reality itself seemed to bend. "Is this safe?" he asked. The queen gave a small, humorless laugh. "Nothing about this is safe. Her fingers tightened on the controls, and the light of the rift lane engulfed the cockpit. For a moment, Elias felt as though they were falling upward into infinity. When the distortion faded, they were surrounded by a swirling tunnel of light, the rift lane stretching ahead like a road carved through the fabric of space. The Queen released a slow breath, her gaze fixed forward. "If we make it through this passage, we'll be beyond the Council's immediate reach," she said. Elias kept his eyes on the tunnel, the colors shifting in ways his mind struggled to follow. "And then?" he asked quietly. Her answer came without hesitation. "Then your real journey begins." The rift lane shimmered like a living river of light, twisting and folding in ways that made Elias's senses rebel. The ship glided forward with unsettling smoothness, guided by the Queen's steady hands on the controls. Around them, the swirling colors pulsed with strange rhythms, sometimes quickening, sometimes slowing, as though aware of their passage. Elias had traveled through human-made jump corridors before, but this felt older, stranger, and far less forgiving. The Queen's focus never wavered. Her eyes reflected the shifting lights, and her fingers moved across the console with the precision of someone who had done this 100 times. "We must maintain exact velocity," she said. "The rift listens, and if it finds us unworthy, it will close." Elias tried to mask his unease, but the idea of the space itself judging them made the back of his neck prickle. "And what makes us worthy?" he asked. Her voice was steady. "Purpose." Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered, and a deep vibration rolled through the hull. The shadows turned sharply toward the source, their weapons ready. Elias looked out the viewport and saw jagged shadows moving through the swirling colors. They were not ships in any design he recognized, more like vast, shifting shapes that swam through the rift itself. The Queen's jaw tightened. "Starborn," she muttered. "They hunt those who do not belong here." Elias leaned forward. "And do we belong here?" Her answer was quiet. "For now." One of the Starborn moved closer, its form rippling as though made of liquid metal and starlight. Elias felt an inexplicable pressure in his chest, as if it were peering into him. The Queen adjusted their course, weaving through the shifting tunnel in tight arcs. The ship groaned under the strain, but the glowing creature did not fall behind. "It's following us," Elias said. She gave a sharp nod. "Because it has recognized a mark on you." The creature's light intensified, and the tunnel around them began to distort. The Queen's hands moved faster, redirecting their path toward a narrow break in the swirling currents. The shadows braced themselves, gripping their weapons tightly. Elias felt the ship lurch as they entered the new path, the light bending sharply around them. "If it catches us, what happens?" he asked. The Queen's tone was grim. "Then the prophecy ends before it begins." They burst from the narrower lane into a broader tunnel, the light shifting from deep violet to blinding white. The Starborn slowed, its form flickering before vanishing into the rift's depths. Elias released the breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Did we lose it?" he asked. The Queen's expression eased only slightly. "For now," she said again, though her eyes stayed on the path ahead. "But they never forget a scent once taken." The rest of the journey through the rift was tense but uneventful. Elias studied the strange patterns in the light, trying to memorize them even though they seemed to change each time he blinked. Eventually, the tunnel began to thin, its colors fading into the familiar black of open space. The Queen's hands relaxed on the controls, and the hum of the ship shifted to a lower, calmer tone. "We are clear," she announced. "But the next stage will test you more than the rift did." Elias stepped closer to the console, looking at the star chart that appeared on the display. A single red marker pulsed far ahead, surrounded by empty space. "That's where we're going?" he asked. The Queen nodded slowly. "The place where the first starblood fell," she said. Her gaze met his, steady and unyielding. "If you are to understand why I knelt before you, you must see where it all began." The stars outside the viewport grew denser as they neared the red marker on the chart. A faint, eerie glow seemed to radiate from the region ahead, casting a strange light across the Queen's face. Elias studied the display, noticing that no known trade routes or patrol paths came anywhere near this sector. "Why is it so empty?" he asked. The Queen's answer was quiet but heavy. "Because nothing that enters ever truly returns." The ship slowed as they approached what looked like the shattered remains of a massive world. Vast chunks of rock drifted in silent orbit, some large enough to hold cities, others no bigger than dust. Strange energy shimmered between the fragments, forming ghostly bridges that flickered in and out of existence. "This is the cradle of silence," the queen said. "It was once the heart of an empire older than my people." Elias kept his gaze on the ruins, sensing that the silence carried more weight than the void itself. They navigated deeper into the field, the shadows scanning each fragment with watchful precision. On one colossal slab of stone stood the remnants of a grand citadel, its spires broken but still reaching defiantly toward the stars. Elias felt a chill as the queen guided the ship to land on a platform that jutted from its side. "This is where the first starblood fell," she said, "and where the prophecy began." The airlock hissed open, and a faint wind brushed against them, though there was no atmosphere to carry it. Elias followed her down the ramp, his boots crunching on dust that had not been disturbed in centuries. The architecture was unlike anything he had seen before, each wall carved with intricate spirals and symbols that glowed faintly at his approach. The queen moved with the reverence of someone entering sacred ground, her steps slow and deliberate. "Every ruler of my line has come here," she said, "but only one before me brought a human." At the center of the courtyard stood a massive stone archway, its surface covered in the same glowing script. The queen placed a palm against it, and the carvings flared brighter. A beam of light erupted from the arch, forming a shimmering veil that rippled like water. "Step through," she told him. Elias hesitated, looking into the shifting light. "What's on the other side?" he asked. Her eyes held his. "The truth you've been running from since the day you were born." He took a breath and stepped forward, the light enveloping him in warmth that sank deep into his bones. When it faded, he stood in a vast chamber lit by a swirling galaxy above. Figures made of light and shadow moved in slow patterns, their forms changing with each step. One of them turned toward him, and though it had no face, he felt its gaze pierce into him. A voice echoed in his mind, neither male nor female but vast and ancient. "Bearer of the starblood," it said, "you have come at last." Elias's heart pounded as a figure raised a hand, and an image formed in the air between them. It showed countless worlds burning, fleets clashing, and at the center, a single human standing against the tide. The queen's voice came from behind him, steady and unshaken. "This is your place in the story," she said. "You were chosen not for who you are, but for what you will become." He turned to her, his voice rough. "And if I refuse?" Her gaze was unwavering. "Then everything dies." The vision faded, leaving only the silent glow of the chamber. Elias stood there, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him, knowing that nothing in his life would ever be the same. The queen stepped beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "Now you understand why I knelt," she said, "and why I will stand with you until the end." The air in the chamber shifted as the galaxy above them slowly faded, replaced by a ceiling of carved stone that pulsed with faint golden light. Elias felt the echo of the voice in his bones, its weight lingering even in silence. The queen remained at his side, her presence steady and grounding despite the enormity of what they had witnessed. He searched her expression for doubt, but found none. She believed every word, and her belief carried its own gravity. They began walking toward a set of towering doors at the far end of the chamber. Each step echoed against the smooth floor, and the glowing carvings on the walls seemed to follow their movement. "What happens now?" Elias asked. The queen's tone was calm, but there was a sharper edge to her words. "Now we prepare for what is coming. The council will not stop, and neither will the starborn." He clenched his jaw, the thought of being hunted from two sides settling like a cold weight in his stomach. As they passed through the doors, they emerged into a balcony that overlooked the endless stretch of ruined space. From here, the fragments of the shattered world looked almost beautiful, each piece glowing faintly against the void. The queen stepped to the edge, her hands resting on the rail. "This place was destroyed because one refused to call," she said. "The next will not be given that choice." Elias joined her, his eyes sweeping the debris field. "You think I'm ready to face something like this?" She did not look away from the stars. "No one is ready. You either become what is needed, or you are lost." They returned to the ship in silence, the shadows closing around them with disciplined precision. Elias felt the eyes of the alien guards on him, though their faces were hidden behind their masks. The ramp closed, sealing them inside once more, and the ship's engines hummed to life. "When we leave this place, the council will know exactly where we have been," the queen said. "Our time will be shorter than we hoped." Elias adjusted the strap of his weapon, his mind sharpening with resolve. Then we make every second count. The vessel lifted away from the ruined citadel, weaving through the drifting stone as a glow of the archway faded into the distance. Elias could still feel the warmth from the vision, though it now burned with a weight of responsibility he hadn't asked for. The Queen sat at the controls, her focus fixed on the dock ahead. "Our path will take us through the outer veil," she said. "A region even my people avoid unless there is no other choice." Elias leaned forward, curious despite himself. "And what makes it so dangerous?" She glanced at him. "It remembers those who enter." Hours passed in the dim glow of the cockpit as they neared the edge of the known lanes. The view beyond shifted from star-dotted black to a haze of silver mist that swirled like a living ocean. Elias felt a subtle pressure against his thoughts, as if something was brushing against his mind. "You feel it, don't you?" the Queen asked without turning. He nodded once. "Like we're being watched." Her voice was lower now, almost a whisper. "Because we are." The mist thickened until it swallowed the stars entirely, leaving only the faint glow of the ship's lights to cut through it. Shapes moved within the haze, slow, massive forms whose outlines shifted like smoke. Elias's grip tightened on the railing, instinct screaming at him to prepare for a fight. The Queen's hands moved steadily on the controls, guiding them deeper. "They will test you here," she said. "Not with strength, but with what lies inside you." He met her gaze briefly, reading no fear in her eyes, only determination. Somewhere in the swirling depths, a light began to grow, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Elias knew, without understanding how, that it was meant for him. The Queen's voice reached him through the thrum of the engines. "This is the last step before the choice," she said. "Once you pass through, there will be no turning back." The light in the mist grew brighter until it became the only thing Elias could see. It seemed to pull at him, not with force, but with a quiet inevitability that bypassed thought entirely. The Queen's hands never left the controls, yet her eyes followed the glow with a reverence that told him this was no ordinary phenomenon. The shadows remained still, their weapons lowered, as though they too understood that no battle could be fought here with steel. The ship slowed, coming to a near halt before the source of the light. It was not a star, nor a ship, but something like a doorway suspended in the mist. Its edges shimmered in shifting colors, and the space within it swirled with an image Elias recognized instantly, the same galaxy that had appeared in the vision at the Cradle of Silence. "Step forward," the Queen said quietly. "Only you can pass through." Elias glanced at her, searching for any hint of doubt, but found none. He left the safety of the ship, walking down the ramp that extended into the impossible void. The mist swirled around him without touching, parting as he moved. The doorway loomed larger with every step, its light growing warmer, wrapping around him like an embrace he didn't understand. As he reached it, a voice whispered in his mind, not the vast and ancient one from before, but something softer, almost human. "Your choice shapes the turning of the stars," it said. Elias stepped through, and the world changed. He stood in a place where there was no sky, only endless light stretching in every direction. Figures began to form within it, countless beings of every shape and size, all watching him silently. At the center stood a figure made entirely of shifting gold, its form flickering between human and alien. Bearer of the star blood, it said, "The time has come to choose." Elias's voice was steady, though the weight of the moment pressed on him. "Choose what?" The figure's answer was absolute. "The fate of both our kinds." Visions poured into his mind. Two paths, each with its own cost. One showed him uniting humans and the Zerif, forging a bond that could stand against the Starborn but at the price of countless sacrifices. The other showed survival through isolation, ensuring his people's safety but condemning the Queen's to destruction. The weight of it pressed harder than any battlefield he had known. He thought of her kneeling before him, of the look in her eyes when she spoke of destiny. In that moment, his choice became clear. "I won't let either side fall," he said, his voice echoing across the endless light. The golden figure's gaze seemed to burn brighter, and the beings watching all lower their heads in silent acknowledgement. "Then you take the third path," it said. "One never written, but always possible." The light surged around him, wrapping him in warmth and pulling him back toward the mist. The voice followed him as he drifted away. "Walk with her, and you will change everything." He stepped back onto the ship's ramp, the mist parting to reveal the Queen waiting at its base. For the first time, Her composure cracked, and relief softened her features. "You came back," she said. Elias gave a small nod, the weight of the vision still heavy in his chest. "I know what we have to do," he told her. She didn't ask for details, as though she already knew the answer. Instead, she turned toward the cockpit. "Then we begin at once." The ship turned away from the mist, its engines flaring to life as the rift gave way to the open stars. Elias stood beside the Queen, both of them staring ahead at the vast unknown. Neither spoke, yet the silence between them carried the weight of an unspoken vow. Whatever awaited them, council, starborn, or worse, they would face it together, not as ruler and emissary, but as the two who had seen the truth and chosen the impossible path.